Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching the Buckeyes at Home series, and welcome back, or welcome to, if this is your first time watching, another segment of Doodle Days with Zach. I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to doodle together today. I'm glad that we have this time, that even though we're apart, we can still get together and doodle together. So at this point, we're going to get right to it, but before we start doodling, I want you to take a look outside. Some of the inspiration for the best pieces of art that I've made come from just looking out my window, and I want you to do the same. Look outside, look at the weather, look at nature. I just want you to take a few moments to look out your window, and I'm going to do the same. Awesome. What did you see out there? Fantastic. No, that's really great. I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to just sit back and observe nature for a moment. So outside my window right now, it's snowing because we're at the tail end of winter here. It's April, and maybe where you're at, maybe when you're watching this, it's sunny or maybe it's raining. But what's really interesting is that as seasons shift, as we move from winter into spring, we still might get a little bit of snow. We might get rain and we might get sun, and we'll see the leaves coming back on the trees. And today's segment of Doodle Days with Zach is going to be focusing on how the seasons affect trees, and maybe that can inform some of the stories you're working on. Maybe you can combine elements of the seasons in your own stories. So we're going to be focusing on not necessarily a big part of landscapes. We've already done that by making a landscape out of a rectangle. But we're going to be focusing on a smaller portion of a landscape. We're going to be focusing on trees today and how the seasons affect trees. So before we get started doodling, I want you to pause and find some art supplies. I want you to go grab some markers, some paper, colored pencils, crayons, whatever you want to use to doodle today, whatever you want to use to color in your doodles. So at this point, I want you to go ahead and find those art supplies, and once you've found them, click on play and we'll resume the video. And welcome back. I'm glad you could find some art supplies. I'm glad that you found some crayons or markers or whatever you're planning to doodle with today. So before we get started, as you notice, I have erased our title doodle. So we're going to get started with our trees here. But before I do, I want to ask you real quick, what are some books or stories that you've read that feature trees in a pretty important way? Maybe the tree is a character, maybe the tree is otherwise important to the story. But what are some books or stories that you've read that feature trees in an important way? Awesome! Those are some really great books and stories. Thank you so much for sharing. When I think about trees in an important way in a book, I actually just think of The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, which is one of my favorite books. So we'll go ahead and get started with our trees here, but I just wanted to get you thinking a little bit more about trees. So we're going to get started by drawing a winter tree. Like I said, we're going to go through the different seasonal changes in trees, and maybe this will help you work out a really cool story. Maybe you can have like elements of different seasons within your stories. So we'll get started by drawing a tree, and on your mark, get set, doodle. So I'm going to draw kind of a rounded edge and kind of bring that up into some parallel lines, so they're going to kind of run alongside each other. But maybe they'll branch out. Now I'm going to kind of draw some other lines, and maybe our tree kind of curves, but our tree should get narrower as it gets closer to the top of the trunk. So I've got some little lines here. I'm going to have them branch out though now. I left some spaces for branching out. But I love tree branches. I think they're so fun to doodle. You can kind of make them go off infinitely. There's so many ways in which you can doodle, and they don't have to look perfect. We're not aiming for perfection here, we're just doodling. So have fun with it. Make as many branches as you want. Maybe we'll have a big one here. It goes off in different ways. But these are really important in landscapes. You gotta have trees. Really important part of any setting, especially if it's outdoors. And just have fun with it. Make as many branches, as few, or as many as you want. This is your doodle, after all. Alright, so I've got a lot of branches on this tree. And at this point, we're basically done with our winter tree. we're just going to color it in real quick. But winter trees are pretty easy because they don't have leaves on them. So once the leaves are gone, all you have left is the bark, you've got the trunk, the branches. There aren't any fruit or nuts or seeds or anything growing off. You just have the branches, the bark, the trunk, and that's it. So it makes it kind of easy. And we're going to be building on this tree, actually. We're not going to be erasing this and moving on to another kind of tree. Although you're welcome to draw another tree beside this on your own paper. But I want to kind of focus on building up on this specific tree on my board. So feel free to follow along if you want to. Now there are some trees that stay green in the winter. And those are called evergreen trees. Can you think of some trees that stay green in the winter? Awesome, cool. I'm glad you can. So one that comes to my mind is pine trees. And I'll show you kind of what those look like here in a minute. I'll show you how to go through those. They don't lose their leaves. They actually have needles, and those don't shed in the winter. So they stay green year long, which is why they're called evergreen trees, because they're always green. All right, so we've got our tree. It's kind of brown. It's got some really nice bark going on it, a lot of branches. So if we wanted to draw an evergreen tree, what's kind of nice is it kind of starts off at a point. So I start by just drawing in kind of a triangle point there, but then it comes down, and you have all of these little branching off, and make sure that like you keep spaces. Kind of go in like a Z-shaped zigzag with your branch bristles, but get bigger as you go down. This should keep spreading out and getting wider. And this way you have a very nice looking pine or evergreen. And stay green all winter. And maybe you can have a little bit of snow, maybe you can add some white to it, or whatever you want to add to it. Maybe some pine cones if you want, or maybe a little bird is sitting on one of the branches. But that's pretty much what a pine tree would look like in a doodle, although you can add a little bit of brown in between some of these bristles, just to give the indication of some bark. And of course, round out the edges, just so we can have what looks like roots. But yeah, so we have a pine tree here. Now I'm going to erase this because I need more space to keep working on this tree as we go through the different seasons. So at this point, we'll go ahead and get started on a spring tree. And what I love about spring is usually you get all these different like petals and blossoms on trees. So you don't necessarily get the green of leaves until late winter, but you start out with maybe some pinks or some white blossoms, very light colors, very pretty. Now I'm going to focus on some pink blossoms. So I'm going to be using, this is actually kind of a reddish purple marker. I don't have a light pink marker, but instead I'm going to be using this sparingly to create the illusion of pink, or at least a little bit of color here. So I'm just going to make a bunch of little C's. And at this point, like I said in my previous video, when we use little C's, it kind of makes the indication of leaves. It creates that illusion. So by using just little tiny C's, whereas sometimes I use really big C's, and these are upside down C's usually for me, that when I use the big C's, I use it more for the green, just to make it look like a big green tree, but for this, I'm going to use just little C's of pink or red. And we've got our spring tree, and I'll hold this up so you can see those colors a little bit. So see, we've actually got quite a few different pinkish lines here, giving us the indication of spring blossoms. Now eventually these will become green, so I'm going to erase some of these. So in late spring, these will turn green, and in summer they'll be green. And then we'll eventually get into my favorite kind of trees, which are the fall trees. So those are really, really pretty. So now, once I get these all erased, we'll go back to our winter tree. That's good for now. We'll go ahead and start working on adding in some green leaves. So at this point, I'm going to use big C's, big upside down C's. And this is going to create really big, bushy leaves that we have going all around this tree. Now, yours can be a lot fuller than mine. You can have a lot more C's here, a lot more leaf indications. Or you can just have the impression of them like I have right now. And that's okay too. It's whatever you want to do with it. It's your tree. Make it however you want. Maybe even put in some apples or something, or a fruit, or maybe a walnut or something growing on one of the branches. So we've got our green. I'll hold this up again, just so you can see it. So yeah, we've got our green tree. This is what a tree would look like in late spring into summer. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this so that we can move on to fall. Now fall will be the last seasonal change, because then we'd go right back to winter, right? I think I'm going to use a little bit more of a big eraser here for this last part. And what I love about fall leaves is that they start to change colors. So you get orange, you get yellow leaves. So if you have orange or yellow markers, if you're drawing along with me, then you can actually go ahead and start working on those yellow or orange leaves. And sometimes they have multiple colors. And at this point, I'm going to take an orange marker, and I'm going to get started. And we're going to keep using some big C's here. We want big, bushy, although eventually this will get a little less, because the leaves will start to fall. So we may not have as big of leaves anymore. We may not have as many leaves. That's okay. It's important just to remember that the colors change, the leaves fall, the leaves come and go, but they always come back. It's kind of what I love about seeing the seasons in trees. But it really makes a neat story when you can express time in the changing seasons with the trees. All right, so I've got some orange in my trees now. And I'll hold this up for you. So yeah, we've got our orange leaves here. And eventually those will all fall. Maybe some of them will go brown as they fall. But they change colors, and that's what's so cool about fall. And you can throw in some yellow in these leaves too. But at this point, we've gone through all of the different seasons, and I've had a lot of fun today. Have you? Awesome. Why don't you show me some of the trees you've drawn? Can you hold them up to the screens, please? Wow, those were incredible. And please feel free to take pictures of those and send them to me at the email link below this video, or leave comments with other things that you'd like to see me doodle. But at this point, I'm so happy that we had this time together. I'm so happy that we had the chance to doodle together today. Thank you so much for continuing to watch the Buckeyes at Home series. Thank you for watching Doodle Days with Zach. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and thanks again for watching.